Hello everyone, this is Toki again speaking. We are on the week 12 for the AWS Cloud Practitioner preparation for the exam, and we have uh, covered many topics last week, and we have went. We're going to week 12. It's the uh, deployment of the blue-green. Okay, so now before we show some example how we would have deploy the or use the deployment blue-green deployment, we would like to um mention briefly what we mean by blue-green deployment, or we can recall last session. So I'm just setting up the presentation so it can have a clear okay, great. um, I'm not sure which screen you're seeing, so let me just adjust that. Okay, great, I'm doing the right one. Sorry. So the blue-green or the blue-green deployment surfaces is basically to just copy the existing environment and you will use it again on the any new future environment. So no need to create any other architect, or you don't need to create any surfaces from scratch. You just use what existed configuration again. So help to save time, it help to save resources, and also it would allow you to test something before you launch a new product. And we also mentioned last week that if you would like to launch a new product using the environment, you can increase the traffic from the existing environment to the new one, and you can just calculate the weight of the traffic and move them accordingly. However, you have to make sure you go through the right surfaces. So it is exactly how to use the beanstalk surfaces to launch multiple environments. Uh, and then you can use the same, those multiple environments in your blue-green environment or deployment. You just basically update your code. Okay. Now, how we going to do that, or how we going to how we going to use the blue-green deployment is to use, for example, elastic beanstalk. So let's say starting off elastic beanstalk from scratch. So we know this, we have to go from the management console system or interface. This time we can go to the right hand side to the and then just click on the new application. And for the sake of this deployment or this lab, which is basically is quick illustration of from last week, which we haven't covered in deep. So we can create an environment, we can call it blue-green, and that will be associated with the application we're going to use. Now, the environment, if you start from scratch, you will have no environment, of course, and you have to create a new one. So we can create elastic beanstalk on this example. So the environment will be associated with that. Now, in order to create an application, either you click to the blue link, create a new one, or you can create a new environment from the right bottom action and select create a new. So it's really down to your choice, but what we're going to choose today is web server. So we would like to create a website and web application, and we access that through this environment. We go through these steps and we can name them, and also we can, if we have a domain, we can either leave the default and then forward your existing domain to this environment, or you can create from scratch. And also the Amazon offer two options. One you can buy with Route 53, and the other one you can use just this choice to check availability. Basically this one for free, but you can see it's not really customized. It would be rather not professional if you share this environment with someone, because it's basically indicated that Elastic Beanstalk used by Amazon, and also the multiple zone or the zone availability. So it's better to have clear name and forward this existed link to your new domain if you want to buy a new one and customize a new one. Description is available, and then you can choose the platform. So the platform can either choose one of the list, which is the most famous platform used on Elastic Beanstalk is the Node JavaScript. And you can choose the existed choices like simple application. And then once you complete, if you have a existed one, you can either just create symbol and upload later on if you have a template, or start from scratch. In both cases, you can always go back and you can configure them. The interesting things here, once we complete and save this configuration, and you can see we have environment 1 and then we're going to have environment 2, which means that we can use it again and again and again. Anything updated on the environment 1, we can reuse it for environment 2. So, and then we can use one for the live services, and we use the second one to update or upload or change our code over and over, test it. Once it's ready, we can shift the traffic from the environment 1 to environment 2 by using the wait. Great. So that's actually from last week. So now I would like to shift and move to the new topic, which is for this week, basically. We're going to talk about advanced cloud computing, which is we're going to use the CloudFront to distribute and go globally. And also we're going to use the AWS API gateway, and we're going to explain what we mean by API and what is the use of it on the AWS. We're going to show some choices and features and services available on AWS to use the big data, or to use big data inside this environment to maximize the benefit of the large data we have on our premises, and to get the benefit of analyzing this big data. Finally, we will talk about the Amazon cases. Also, we're going to cover in detail or in advance VPC. We've just mentioned about the blue-green environment, which I decided to mention at the beginning because it was the last week topic. And we have mentioned this as exercise rather than lab to revise on how we deploy this by the use of AWS Beanstalk. Finally, we're going to mention what is the difference between SWF and the existing one, SNF, and what other security we have on AWS to enhance and increase the security in our application. So let's do it. So just quick recall from the week 10, we have covered the EFS, Elastic File Services. We have also covered the Trust Advisor, and we mentioned about Amazon S3 lifecycles to our EC2 environment and instances, and we have explained what is the difference between ECS and between the that can several environment or several instance, and we can manage them all from one place. And the best example here, we can really it's to use Elastic Beanstalk to contain or control or manage and configure multiple instances. And that was week 10. And then we covered on last week in the first session Cognito, also S3 with the archive environment. We have explained what services we can use for the multi-factor authentication on Amazon, which is external services, enhance your security and add more layer on your user, how they access the environment or access the application. Finally, we mentioned on Amazon S3 the bucket policies and also the life cycle management. And we have covered the database on AWS, okay, and how many database environment we have and how we use them. We have described what is CloudFormation, which is text-based code to deploy a several environment or several accounts if you got multiple accounts. We show what we mean by deployment on AWS. Instead of deploying unique single architect or application, we can deploy the entire application again and again on different layers. We mentioned AWS Ops Work code environment. Today, as I mentioned, we start already with the blue-green, but we had covered that last week at the end. And today we're going to talk about CloudFront, the distribution, global distribution of AWS, ABI, big data, Kinsys, and VPC, and the last two, simple workflow and the security. Great. Okay. Now, if we recall back, what is CloudFront and in which environment they are, or which category belong to? They belong to the content delivery, which is cloud computing in general, but what it is exactly the CloudFront? I keep repeating the CloudFront is a global distribution. How? It's a global content delivery network that allowed you to deliver all your content over the 100 edge location. These edge location distributed globally. So Amazon have enabled this edge to, or the user to use this edge to distribute their existed content globally. So if you are in Europe or America, you can copy the content on a different region. Okay. The edge location is quite different from the availability zone. The availability zone is just in each region we have multiple availability zone, while the region as it is entirely, we have the name of a edge location. These edge location are secure by default. Still, we have to increase the security. We have to pay attention for the user who have access to this account and allow the right users to access the right environment and add additional services, which is one of our topic later on this session. Now, As you can see here, I mentioned earlier, it's a global content delivery network, securely by default deliver this content to the globe. So it would be within few minutes live and up and running globally, really, with a few seconds, and you have the benefit of the high transfer speed for all your users. And this cloud front environment allowed you to be saved. Another way, you're going to have additional protection against DDoS attack. Now, this environment quite often updated against latest attack or latest virus report. So that's something to take into account. Now, it's not a product to use to provide services to users. Neither it's an application to use to deliver content similar to EC2, or if we have S3 here, can use it to deliver database or any of the database services. So CloudFront stay on the edge of your account, not in the VPC, okay? Because it's quite different. Because in your VPC, you may need to use Elastic Load Balance to check the health of each instance and then redirect the user to the right healthy environment. While quite often we talk about E2 auto-scaling. EC2 auto-scaling allowed the environment to expand when we run out of instance. But while we have healthy instance, elastic load balance enough to redirect the traffic to the right way or the right design to content? No, obviously not. We need to have EC2 instant auto balance. So if we have that, yes, we can say when all of them are died or they have no healthy, you will use the application to create copy. Always there will be one for standby. Available globally, and we have the multiple region available. Let's say if I want to go to available on the other region or other different edge locations, so I can just use CloudFront to go to other region. Don't confuse region with the availability zone. So each region have multiple availability zone, which you will decide which availability zone you want your environment to be. We can talk about this topic, especially applications that will exist. They will be always on this architect. So wherever you have architect, you can add any services you would like to deliver your services on a cloud. The only problem you need to know which services to deploy if you need to consider the cost. So the main, let's say, factor on all this design, it's the cost. If you really don't care about cost, then you don't need to worry about how much application you add and what is the application you need and how much can it cost. But if you're looking for cost-wise, which I presume most of people who shift to the cloud, they want to save some money, and you need to pay attention for the difference between using elastic load balance without EC2 and the difference between being on one availability zone and multiple availability zone, how much costs if I am in one. And also you need to consider how much will cost me if I am in different. Mentioned many times during this course, but on this advanced level of cloud practitioner, we would like to take it more further. Now, we just mentioned now edge location. What is edge location? And what is the difference between edge location and the CloudFront distribution? And what is the difference between the origin server and the content? And what is the option? So let's take them one by one. Now, the CloudFront is the web service that's available, and it's needed for high performance delivery content. So you could use any web application or services, and then you say, why I need CloudFront? Of course, you don't need it if you just wanted to focus on one region. But if you wanted to go globally, and also in the same time, you would like to be, or this the content to be delivered in a high performance, then the best choice on the AWS is to use CloudFront. Great. Now, what it is really, it's a worldwide network data center of data. So we got multiple data centers, which we call them or area edge location, and these are uh, used to help AWS in the past to reduce number of hubs requests. If you don't know what hubs, please refer to the slide note. I had quite definition about the difference between these. Now, the line we can see here in a diagram is represent the request from server over the wide of the internet. It sometimes can take quite significant time, and can take quite route. So having closer edge, it will reduce the number of these hubs. Obviously, the latency in responding to this request is going to be fast. Now, region. AWS or Amazon in general use the benefit of having their server uh, across the globe, and they use the benefit of having the each location used by other customers. So they enable the user to use different location to deliver their content globally, quickly, with a high performance. So if you are on in Europe, for example, and wanted to reach Asia or America, so you can use this edge location, which is in a blue, to paste or copy your content there and enable the user on the that region to access this content without coming to your origin server. Okay. Uh, Recently, they have more than actually 16 region, because this is the latest update from Amazon, which was on January 16, and they have more than 42 availability zone and more than 50 edge location. If you blog, and particularly in regard of point of present, where we will find the country and the cities available for you to use your application to host on this edge location. Now, in 2020, they got more than we have, I believe now, around more than 42 availability zone is around 60, and more than 200 edge location. So what is the difference between CloudFront origin server and the edge location? So edge location, we just said it's the server or the hub available for you to use. But the origin server is the location of your original content. For example, if you create your application or architect on the USA, Virginia, and you have uploaded all your file and document and data on that S3, which is existed on the USA servers, then that would be your origin server. If you would like to put your CloudFront on the top of the architect, still it would be in your origin server. The only things where you would copy the new environment or architect and which into which availability zone. Now, there is some important things we have to mention in regard of the origin server. it's an HTTP server, can be on EC2 instant application and vice versa. Also, it can be on a web server you manage. Okay. Uh, so the difference between the HTTP and web server, so you can have your application and directed by the HTTP call, and also you can have a web server which application exists on that server. You can use both. So now the CloudFront must have access to your origin server. Okay. Let's say if you have a CloudFront, but they on other architect or in another availability zone and does not access your origin server, then logically you wouldn't have be able to be available globally or copy your content to another availability zone. Now, it doesn't have to actually to be on AWS. So if it's publicly accessible, then you can use that as a basic of your CloudFront distribution. This is very important. Great. Now, what is the distribution? CloudFront distribution. The CloudFront distribution tell the CloudFront which and where is our origin server to get our file from. Then the time for that case to go live, it's then going to be one of the criteria of that distribution. Now, CloudFront automatically assign the domain to your new application. Great. And you can also define your own alternative domain using such as route 53. And on route 53, you can use the CNAME. Okay. So that's going to have a record entry of all your domain. Then you can use the CNAME to use alternative domain existed on your route 53. Route 53 is basically table record all your domain on your at your AWS. If an edge location contains any request file within the time to leave is delivered directly from the cache. If it's not, it's then fetched from the origin, then delivered to the cached at the edge location. If we wanted our content to be changed before that time to leave is expired, then we can do that. For example, we can let me repeat that again. If we want our content to be changed before the time to leave expired, then we have to do the following. For example, if you got a new content and you want to put that out on a globe or on other distribution, we wanted to make sure that our end users are getting the most updated content, current content. We can invalidate that distribution, or we can use the part of that distribution. For example, we can make directory within that distribution of each individual file. Okay. So this is really not important to understand the advanced differences between these time to leave or other things not related for you as a cloud practitioner. But the most important to know that the CloudFront distribution, it's basically help you to direct things around your other globe architect, just to tell the CloudFront where is the origin services and where is the file. That's it. Now, there is delivery dynamic content and how we manage that content. So if we got dynamic content, let's say it's PHP file and going to be cached, we got a time to leave of 1 day, then it's not necessarily going to be dynamic content anymore from the user perspective. So the options available is that we can have very low time to leave, or we can have actually not cache dynamic content, only static content, cloud in a CloudFront. Now, what is the type of the method we can use? Because if you think about it, it's all about the method that's used to call this content from the CloudFront to the CloudFront origin server, from the content to the origin servers, from the content to the which is left on the origin server to the new architect or new uh, edge location. Now, the only way to get that directed or, for example, read if it's requested by the get or head method. Now, this get or head method is basically HTTP method that's being used to cast your website, and similarly can be cast by the CloudFront. So only response to that too. If you're using put, post, or delete, you have to make solution. Either add IBI, we will talk about it now in a minute, or to change the way your method, which is quite easy and straightforward, is not for the scale or for this session. But if you need to read more about it, just learn more about HTTP method and you will understand how you change it. Very basic from the HTML document. You can update it with the use of the text file editor, and you can just basically change the method from get to head. Very simple. Can be one word. Now, if you use this, you won't be able to benefit from the CloudFront. It will not read it. It will not deliver any updated content. You may successfully manage to deliver static website, but if you have dynamic website, trust me, it won't be any new updated latest content goes to your end users. Now, I added on the slide, for those who can access this slide, I added the some tutorial, great tutorial about the difference between HTTP and the web. It explained very, very, very clearly the request response cycle, which is the head gate, and the rest of them. So please make sure you access this tutorial, or you can just basically go to YouTube and Google the difference between them. Now, what is the options? Now we know that we can make our application globally. We can direct the content to be copied from the origin server to the end location. But what is the options we have? As you can, as the same option that you can have when you created your website or application, you can basically create brilliant, amazing, professional website with the use of HTML5, CC code, and also you can use PHP files or Java files or any other programming language as a dynamic. The difference between them really, the statics or the static website is not going to allow the user to interact with the website. It's just like a leaflet, where the dynamic will allow the user to read, update, edit, delete if you enable that as well. And they get the most up-to-date delivery. Okay, they can use it to upload document, videos, code, while all the other static is just basically content that you design, publish, and that's it. Will stay until you modify them manually and upload them again back to your system. Now, these different options, it will determine how well your cloud fronted would be, and where is the direct distribution and where is the cloud front. It would be also, it will show is this advantage and disadvantage on this table. So let's start with the first one. If you're using HTML file as a static website and you direct your user with the use of HTML or CSS file code, then you're going to have the images, video, and the document on the CloudFront, on the origin server. The advantage of that is you, if you decided to use that, it's going to be easy. It's going to be update as soon as you will add them to your website. So this is the first one. Okay. Now the disadvantage, you're gonna have latency, and the because all this file read from where? Going to read from the direct. Now, what if you, but you will not put anything CloudFront, you put the content. It's going to have a low latency, and you have to, whatever you changes you add, you have to require this to have a new file names checked, and you have to make sure all the link available is connected back again clearly, and again is manually. So that's reason it's not a dynamic. So the dynamic website, yeah, either you can have a dynamic page which is going to determinate or help you to help the users to get to the right image and file, and basically all of them, they will be sitting on the CloudFront. Now that's great because good choice. Anything you will add or anything the user added going to be up to date on the CloudFront and on the users or at the end users applications. There is this advantage, the latency, because we're going to rely on the PHP files. Okay. Now, if you use the dynamic again, okay, that one, that two, but you don't want it to add anything on direct, you want to make a dynamic page, similar like here on this on the static one, we have used the content as our CloudFront. If you use the CloudFront as a dynamic and static page as well together, so you have a low latency advantages, and time to leave require you to have to pay more attention. So you need to make a balance between the age of the content stayed on the CloudFront and the load to the origin server. Okay, so you have to make sure that the content read and write between this edge location and your content page, which is the origin server. You have to make balance among them. You can use elastic load balance, and you can manually do them. So conclusion, the CloudFront option will be available for you, and it's a strategy perspective for you and how you would use your CloudFront from for a different scenario. Now, we have last week, or let's say specifically in week 7, we got the lab that we went through it, and we talked about how we create CloudFront distribution. Now, what we did particularly or specifically there, precisely, we have got our website and we built it up and was up and running. We've got our domain. We registered it with the Road 53, and we have did the final things we did. We got our secure socket layer, which is security certificate, was also up and running. Now we're going to continue accordingly, similarly, because we're learning more advanced on CloudFront. We're going to also learn more lab in advance how we going to manage the CloudFront and how we're going to copy this content and put them and cache them on the website. So the next really thing, we need to create the CloudFront distribution and copy all that content across the edge location you decide. Could be 100, all of them. And what you will need to do, or what that will do for you if you do so, will give your end users high availability, very high speed across all your edge location to access your website. It will reduce the costs, because the costs, if you use accessing from one edge location, be less than the from Amazon S3, because we learned previously we can use our S3 as a public application and put our file on there and use it to give access to the file existed, whatever file, could be data, could be video, images. But we have built our website inside the S3. We create a bucket, we upload the website there, template, and was up and running. But the problem of doing so, you will not be able to deliver your content from S3 if you're relying on S3 globally, it needs some additional configuration. But if you put your content in the CloudFront, not necessarily you need to use S3 directly with the CloudFront, and will help you to reduce the cost. And also, finally, will provide additional security. As we explained at the beginning, is we'll be able to prevent the DDoS attack in your website. Great. Now this architect AWS Cloud, you can use it at your CloudFront. So what is in here? We can see the edge location, and is represent the different location, and we can have a different copy on these locations. We can also have our website even setting on the S3. If you decided to keep it that way, you can keep your website or your application on the storage, on the bucket, and then just basically use the CloudFront to copy that content to the other different edge location in your AWS cloud. And you can use one certificate rather than different multiple certificates. You can use also your AWS Management Console to create and to manage all of this. Now, the only things you need to pay attention for that your it's a little bit advanced level, but it's really worth to mention that. Now, if you notice, here we go, the storage or the website setting outside the VPC. Okay, this is the VPC. Now, what is this, or what is this area? It's our AWS account. So basically that means our S3 bucket is not publicly available. It's for us available. We can access it using our AWM, but it's private and nobody can access if we don't have the link. Even they have the link, they won't be able to access because you are the root users. You're only the one allowed to access. Now you can enable certain files, let's say this file, to go to your inside of your VPC, and then it will have endpoint here. Basically, the endpoint here, it's going to have an IP, and that way is going to be your CloudFront distribution. Okay. Any file goes in your CloudFront distribution from S3, any website or image or video, going to be distributed against this edge location. All of them are online, or let's say available publicly. Okay, so that's the difference. This area is private, this area is public, and that guy or that CloudFront distribution responsible of distributing this or this one content among the other. 5.3 is just to redirect the traffic. If someone hit your domain, it will take them to the right edge location against their actually IP. Each user will have their unique IP, public IP, which is defined there. Where are they exactly? And they will go to the right content delivery edge if they are allowed to see this content. Here you also can manage that. You can configure this website or this content. Even one content, you can allow certain edge location to see certain of that website, certain pages. You can prevent them from accessing the VIP page, let's say additional subscription, whatever. The idea is that 5.3 is the main services allowed you to direct this traffic. Now, this the CloudFront, very simple and very basic for all other AWS cloud services through AWS Management Console user interface, and you can create your first distribution if you don't have. Then you can follow the steps. At this point, don't change anything. Now, this one, as we mentioned earlier, if you have your bucket here and you want to keep it private, remain the selection as no, because otherwise it will be available availability in public. So it will, now we have to change the HTTP to redirect it. By default, this is the default choice. Please change it and make sure you have the choice, the allowed HTTP method we mentioned earlier, and or just keep the default one. But remember this going to have weird domain name or ID, which is this one. If you don't have specific custom domain, then you're gonna have this long URL, which is quite weird to give to your user to access your website. Now you can just go with the same option and just create one. That is your ID. You can use it for opening the CloudFront. It's hyperlink. Also, you can access this from different places, but the most important to recognize your ID is belong to that domain, and the content can be the same as your domain, custom domain. It's a personal preference. You can add whatever you think is suitable, but remember to if you're going to have list of websites, remember each domain name against each content. Now, the second topic of today, it's the AWS API gateway. Okay. Now, before we go further, we have to remember on which category or service is available for us to use. Similarly, is going to be on the network content delivery as CloudFront, as VPC, as Route 53, Direct Connect, Elastic Load Balance. All of them allowed us to manage and have the content delivery used. So API, its gateway make it easier for us to develop or for developer to create and deploy secure application interface. Okay, application program interface is the API. So it allowed us on Amazon to develop and create a new one or use existed one. Great. Now, the theory behind all this and the reason being is that you are going to be if you want to continue on associate level, but it doesn't require you too much knowledge about the API gateway, but you need to know the understand of how it's all work together regardless. So we need to know what is API gateway, what is architect, and we're going to give a few examples. Now, it's a function on that application program interface, and it's a serverless, which is very important. We're going to talk about it in the second course, advanced level, why it's considered or recognized as serverless and what is mean by serverless. Again, is going to be out of the scope of this session, so we're just going to say it's simple, flexible, manage basic Go services, handle all aspects of deploying, creating API, and obviously it's going to be at your back end. Now, this is an example where you would use the Amazon Gateway and you use it to access data. For example, an RDS instance, you wanted to access that through an application API. So what we can do is that we can have a Lambda function between the API gateway and the data resources. And so the Amazon API gateway will trigger when receive a request for information and also request for data that will be the trigger the Lambda function. And the Lambda function will go to that data source and will retrieve that data. And then for that data to go on API gateway. Okay, so basically it's just easy way to access your data rather than having your data on the CloudFront. Now, how we make that fit within Route 53? and CloudFront. We know Route 53 is just a DNS, domain name management system, and CloudFront is a distribution. But how can we fit the application program interface? How we manage the request? Okay. Now we can use the 53 routes to set up domain for that IPI. You can say news.bbc, entertainment.bbc.com can be admin. So you can notice the API can be for the domain name, and then we can it would understand this way will allow you to understand or allow the application to understand to get the request, getting the data, and is going to coming um, in which format, and then usually if you decided to have HTTP requests, GET or head or GET, and then it will read that one which we just mentioned earlier. That's why it can be easily understood by the HTTP request. Now, if it's post or GET, and which is not going to read, then or delete, we get request with the query parameter, not a general GET request. This will be bypassed from the CloudFront distribution and will go directly to API. So it's a good also if your method not going to accept by CloudFront, then you can use your API to redirect and to it's called bypass, and to bring it back to your application program interface API, and then there we go. We can get the benefit of being in CloudFront if you don't want it to use your HTTP method. This is something to consider. Now, that's enough for IBI, because if we go further, then it will be outside of our topic of today as a cloud practitioner. That's more than enough, but make sure you understand this really a little bit on this basic level to access future level associate certificate if you'd like to. Big data. Big data, basically, it's a theory behind all this. Now, and the reason being is that AWS also you have to have too much knowledge about the big data as well. How we can use the big data, or how can use the services available on AWS to benefit of that large data. So what is available on AWS for big data? If I am a big data analyst and I want to use AWS to reduce the costs and to have the benefit of the cloud computational and high availability of GPU and all these computational fast services, we're going to talk on regard of big data about what is the services available and what we mean by Redshift to use with the conjunction of big data topic. There is something very famous, quite popular now, used for Elastic MapReduce, EMR, for business intelligence analyst. We can use Elasticsearch within AWS to use the big data we have to basically perform very quick query on our data. We can use QuickSight, one of the machine learning services tool available in AWS, and also we can use machine learning tools designed specifically to apply a new machine learning method to get better results, or do any other future experiment. And eventually, or finally, we're going to talk about Kinsys. So if we are familiar with the services available in AWS, it's really great some illustration about what we have on AWS for the database services that's available. Each one of them, they have their own use case or need. The first one is Redshift for the big data. It's fully managed. Is a bytes scale data. What that means? So if you have a large database and you want to scale it up or down, you have the benefit of using these services as a warehouse database. So also you can use your SQL structured query language engine to be based on that warehouse. You can add, delete, explore, amend, edit, and also you can run query. It's a really for big data storage solution. Okay, now we're going to talk about Amazon EMR. Amazon EMR is Elastic MapReduce, or EMR for short. It's a Hadoop framework. It's a services available in Amazon. Athena allow you to analyze the data stored on the Amazon S3 bucket. Okay, Elasticsearch, it's a fully managed services for Elastic.co. Elastic.co enabling you to use their services to manage your big data and to search among your data. The Amazon have enabled that within their services, and they add this new name as Amazon Elasticsearch, but you still need to have an account with Elastic.co in order to use Elasticsearch. The final one is the Amazon Kinesis. Amazon Kinesis allowed you to collect the data and process the data in a real-time streaming. QuickSight, finally, is a business intelligence reporting. It's similar to Tableau or Power BI visualization. So the first things we're going to learn in an analytics tool available for big data, Elastic MapReduce. Now, it's a open sources. It's a collection of open sources, basically. It's a utility for business intelligence. It's facilitated the using of network of many computers to solve the problem of a massive amount of data and computational. So it's really great solution for you if you are interested in machine learning and big data and mine data, cluster the data, reduce the data, and find the pattern on the data. Apache Spark is similar. It's unified analytic engine for big data, so you can use either of them, and that both of them can be used within EMR. Now, it's used as a services. You can run other framework that integrated with Hadoop, such as Apache. Data can be analyzed in a number of data storage. If you have S3, Redshift, or any other data storages, or even database storage, including, as I mentioned, S3 and DynamoDB. This is illustration graph to show the Kinesis. If you have real-time API live streaming, let's say you have multiple channel or multiple live streaming at the same time, how can you analyze that one? Amazon Kinesis allow you to collect this data and process them in a real-time live environment. And so great things I've added for AWS users. The next one, AWS Analytic Tools. Basically, it's a quick site business intelligence. Used for business intelligence reporting tool. It's similar to Tableau. Please learn more about Tableau if you like to learn or do some visualization for your big data. It's really great tool. It's if you also interested on Java programming. Also, I advise you to learn about BIRT. Is a fully managed by AWS. Just to recall the machine learning, last session we talked about all the deep lens and recognition, Lex, SignMaker, Translate, Transcript, Comprehend, and all of these are used to achieve machine learning experiment, if you like to experiment on your data and use approaches, method, or mathematical equation, computational to enhance your results. Okay, so it's a deep learning environment. Enable, for example, video cameras. SignMaker specifically for the flagship machine learning product. allow you to build, train your own machine learning models. Recognition, deep learning as well as analyze for video and images. Licks allow you to build conversation chat box. Bolly or BOLLY provide natural sound text to speech. If you speak, then it will convert it to text. Comprehend, you can use the deep learning to analyze the text for an insight and relationship between these words. Amazon Translate, you can use the machine learning to accelerate or you can accurately translate any text to a number of different languages. Transcribe, it's automated speak recognition services by Amazon. All of them available for you to use on AWS account. This is one of the lab we did previously. You can upload any image or you can use existed library there to recognize what is inside the pictures. And you can see the result now there. You can see it identifies the skateboard, 99 percentage is indicated there is a sport and skateboard. It's amazing, isn't it? More than 80 is always close to success. It's a sport, there's a human being, there is so all these criteria indication and they got rank. It's really amazing. Now if we use ourselves, we need to send a request to Amazon Recognition. We can use IBI, and through one of the many software you can use, for example, JavaScript software development kit function. You can connect it automatically and use the function to use it in your application. Okay, this is one of the recognition. If you have celebrities or famous person and you wanted to identify who is this person, you just put the picture. It will identify the personality and also will distinction between the both of them, which one it would be, which object and activity are available as well. Text and image with the recognition, you can identify the text inside the images. For example, it's been used by the traffic officers to basically issue a ticket for parking or for speed limit. To recognize the text within automatically is created now. You will get your fine by post, and you can see the result on the right side. It's read accurately the registration number. You can appeal if it's not right. Now that's the big data now available for on AWS, and this services enable you to achieve the best result if you wanted to use the big data services. Now we have to note that the data storages to use for big data many, and we have to actually to just want to mute that one because it's quite interesting background. Is so the all storage is available, such as RDS, S3, DynamoDB, Shift allowed you to analyze the big data available in there, and you can use also the not just storage analysis services to analyze these storages, such as EMR, Elasticsearch, QuickSight, Business Intelligence Tool, machine learning, all of what we mentioned earlier, Lambda function, trigger anything within application, cases for real-time data, and you can also use third party, which is available on AWS. Now, these are individually the services for big data, Redshift. Now, you can analyze your big data based on Post SQL. Will give you more accessibility over your big data. You can also access your big data with the standard business intelligence reporting tools, even are stored in Redshift. All data will be replicated between the node in the cluster. If you have many cluster inside the data, you can continually back them up to S3 if you create this configuration, and basically it will reduce the cost because it's going to have a snapshot rather than the all data. It will hold for 1 up to 35 days and then will go to archive. Also allowed you to have a quick recovery because snapshot is better than full recovery or full backup, and other additional feature which is beyond the scope of this lecture. How we migrate the data if it's big in AWS, we can use either Snowball or we can use the migration services database. Now, the Snowball to S3 can be migrated, and the database migration service to other database services are such as RDS. Okay, and you have also snapshot to S3. You have Bibline. We will talk about them in a future, in advanced level. Now there is a problem if you're using your internet connection to migrate your data and rely on that connection speed and the number of terabyte you want to upload within that network. Remember, if you going to do this traditional way, and let's assume you have the best connection available right now, which is not going to be more than 100 megabyte individually, even in a enterprise level. Only the government level or big organization such as intelligent, let's say in England, the Home Office or the Metropolitan Police, they have their own dedicated network which can go up to 1000 megabyte. Also, the network themselves provider, they have these services, but in a business level, you won't have more than 100 megabyte. If you wanted to upload 5 terabyte or more than that, going to take you 120 days if you're using the traditional way, which is quite really big time consuming. By the way, 5 terabyte now is going to be very small, because if you have a school or a university, each college have at least few hundred students, and each student would have at least 1 terabyte in their account available to use during their study. So imagine you have 100 terabyte to upload, even you have 100 megabyte connection. It's going to be 120 days multiply 100. So that's not really good solution. So the best available solution on AWS to use AWS Big Data migrate storage services called Snowball. What is Snowball? I have include on my lecture slide great description by the AWS themselves when they launched the new 80 terabyte abilities for new services. So that what they basically do, they will send you real device, physical device to your premises, and you would upload all your file on that one. Can hold up to 80 terabyte. They can send you as much as you need. Could be 10 of them. Of those, multiply by 80, you will have 800 terabyte. Usually people use it for quick integration and shifting some emergency data. Not necessarily have to be live data uploaded or updated content. You can use your traditional way to update some content daily. But if you want to shift all your data instantly, immediately from your premises, for example, you are shifting or you're closing down some warehouse or some department and or campuses, and you still need that data, and no longer you are able to pay all these expenses, so you can request this from Amazon, shift them, and then send them back to AWS, where the engineer will upload it in your account. This is the best way at the moment. Sorry for that. Now, I think this is wanted. Can Okay, great. That's simplify the snowball devices and migration services available. It's played automatically. It was not planned, but it's great. I allowed it to go through. Okay, so continuing on AWS Big Data, we have a EMR. As I said, it's fully managed. Allowed you to cluster many of EC2 instance, analyze the data existed there. Also, you can also automatically delete upon task completion. It's not suitable for small data set because it's really require long and complex and complicated configuration. So not necessarily you have to do it if you have a small data. Now, the data processing framework, as I said, Hadoop and Apache Spark, both of them. The storage option on that EMR, you can use the Hadoop itself distribution. It's called HDFS for the storage within that environment instead of relying on S3 or also you can also connect it to S3. You can have a local file system in your PC or server, and then you can launch it in your cloud. So what is the ACIDA? ACIDA is the way of transactioning this process. The acronym of ACIDA refers to the 4 key, yes, which is the property of the transaction: atomicity, the consistency and isolation, and the durability. All these have helped the change to the data, and the data perform as if they are single operation, then it's as once. So this is all the change need to perform. None of them are, or even none of them. Okay, great. Now, it's a computer science surfaces. It's a set of properties on the data intended to grant a validity of the event, if you know about it, which is allowed you to calculate the errors and the power of failure, and to manage this after you save them, or manage them individually. This is all under the database. If you get lost on what we're talking about big data and surface availability. Now, um, it's also in the context of the sequence of the database operation, which is satisfy that properties if we wanted to apply ACID transaction. Now, Elasticsearch on the big data, it's a real-time distribution, allows you to analyze all the data exists on an engine way. It's the most popular way. Also, it's a fully managed of the Elasticsearch, the implementation of Elasticsearch. Um, Now, you can analyze any data from S3, Kinsys, DynamoDB, CloudWatchlog, and CloudTrail API. You can use Elasticsearch to analyze it. Basically, just you can find out how many data you got and how many users, and find the connection between them, and any cluster button. You can predict the future of the time series if you have any changes, calculate any statistical equation on that one. So it's suitable for query, as I mentioned, in large data. Is not suitable for online transaction processing, neither not suitable for the petabyte storage, considering using the self-manage of EC2. So if you want to use EC2, it will not allow you to store, it's not suitable if you store big large data on EC2. Have to be individually, such as S3 or DynamoDB, because in some cases we can use EC2 to store data, but the best choice, as we know, is Elastic Cache for EC2. We mentioned not suitable for OLTP, or light transaction processing. What is the difference between them? Now, there is a difference between OLTP and OLAP. Okay, the main difference, the online transaction process more faster, handling the process speed than the OLAP on the right side. The OLAP just requires only read operation, while OLTP requires both read and write. Okay, the OLAP also have to mention is handle all historical data, while the online transaction protocols handles the recent operation data. The OLTP, online transaction processes, is good for if the size is smaller than typical storage size, which is from 100 megabyte to 10 gigabyte. If it's larger than that, please use OLAP. So having said that, whatever you decided, remember the Elasticsearch will not be suitable for the right side of the screen, which is OLAP. Quick site, business intelligence reporting services, is super fast in memory calculation engine, and is one of the 10th costs of traditional business intelligence software, such as Tableau, Power BI, and Quick, and all other third-party engine. The good things about QuickSight, you can use it with the existing services. If it's data, you can use it with Amazon RDS, Redshift, S3 storages. You can use it with Kinsys Livestream, DynamoDB, Elastic MapReduce, any third party's application. Also, you can use it with files, not necessarily have to be um, dedicated application. Great. Now, Amazon machine learning on the big data, you can use S3 Redshift RDS only, and you can use it to predict analysis, and you can simplify the use of visualization. You can use it as a wizard tools. It's suitable for suspicion transaction, spam. You can make forecasts of the product demand. You can also personalize your application content. You can predict any user activity, suspect access to your website, logging, malicious automated activity. You can analyze your social media. It's not good for large data set. It's not supported for any learning tasks. Consider EMR to run Spark if you wanted to use this as a machine learning. The cases, the final topic of today as a big data, as we know, is a live streaming. We can use IBI call to capture this stream or software development kit tools. And also in Kinsys, there is a producer library allowed you to capture all this data. If you want to use Java application as agent, that's fine. You can use it to capture all the data streamed live. Kinsys client library can be used to process the data. As I mentioned, you have many options: Java, Node, Python. You can develop your own kit tool using Amazon Kinsys library, such as C++. Now, all the data captured then can go to your S3 or database Redshift for future analysis. It's good for real-time data. It's good to capture the log and the data feed intake during that process. Its real-time matrix will be created. Not good for small scale of data or long-term data storage and analytics. The final topic of today is going to talk about simple workflow services, SWF, and it's not on the content delivery network, it's on the application integration category. So as I mentioned earlier, we have SNS, simple notification services, we have simple queue services, we have step function. But what is the difference between these? Find out most of the confusion or the closest application to SWF is the step function. So the step function is coordinate the component distribution, application, and microservices, while the SWS, which is simple flow workflow services, coordinate not micro but multiple components of the business process. So on the left side for micro surfaces, on the right side for multiple surfaces. Now, we're going to talk about the feature of SWF, the component of it, and there is something else we need to learn today, the actor, tasks, and implementation. And we're going to give an example. So we mentioned it's a coordinate multiple components. It's a good for long-running execution. It's enable complex interaction between different applications. And the feature of SWF, if you have a task, you want to execute that one, you will have it with no duplication, which is great. And the routine and queuing of the tasks, you're going to use it as a features to control the timeout and execution state available for you as a feature in SWF. You can have something called child workflow. We will talk about it in a minute. And the data you saved or the data user can be as an input, and you can use the result as an output. The component We have workflow, we have domain, tasks, and actors. Each one of them play a main role on the component of its AWF. The workflow controlling the logic, how we execute things. The domain contain the workflow or workflows, singular or plural. The tasks can be performed by executing any code at once or the entire web application to the end of users. They can perform in a parallel way. And the final component, we name it as an actors, which interact directly with the SWF to coordinate all these tasks you defined previously. Now, if we take the actors can be a series of workflow starters. It will have decider, it will have activity, and on the actors as well, we can define the starters themselves. We initiate each actor starters, and we going to have deciders as well within the actors, which is the logic. Activity worker perform this activity task of all entire workflow. Now, the difference between actors and task, the actors can be just multiple of these agent, the other name of them starters or deciders, while the task itself defines the specific task using either the API or command line interface to register these tasks. Once you schedule them or register them, you can specify the task list in a queue way. You can make a decision of any activity, and you can also manage or control the list and separate the queue. You can run particular task, and that can be assigned to particular activity through that task routine. How we implement these task and actors and decider, we can use SDKs, software development kit tools. We can use SWF API, there is an API dedicated for SWF. Use the post calls. We can use a framework of Java or Ruby if you are familiar with them. You can set up also by using the console on AWS Management Console. Now, this is an example. It looks like SWF workflow. Here we can see very large, very simple example of a large data that was on AWS website. So it is for video transcoding in transcoding application, and it's very simple process. So we can just grab the video in the codes, add the video, and added the digital right management or the copyright, if we name them, copyright protection to that video, and then finish. So this is a simple workflow examples. Now we will talk about the AWS Shield and security firewall management. So the first one we going to cover today, it's the distribution denial services, DDoS. The DDoS, you can have the DOS itself. You can notice here only one D at the beginning. This is actually the attack to damage your availability, not your application. And the other one is attack the multiple sources application. The attacker use compromised system to control your system. They make manual intervention, and it's very difficult for you to solve that problem easily. The classification can be on the layer, or can be on the application layer or the infrastructure layer. So you have two-way they attack your application on the infrastructure level or in the application level. There is a quite significant difference between them. And there is a protection technique. You can reduce the attack. You can plan for scale. You can know what is normal and not normal, abnormal. You can manage that as well. You can deploy AWS for sophisticated application attack. And we will mention this in next. So the second thing, the shield on AWS, which allowed you to have additional protection, is active network monitoring, protect you against this DDoS attack, and can be set on the CloudFront and also can be on the Route 53. Additional feature protection. It's for free. If you want to have an advanced one, you have obviously to pay for the services. You will expand the protection, and you will also have the response team who help you to recover the attack quite significantly quickly, and the cost protection will charge against the period that being solved. Now, as you can see, you can have them sitting on your 5.3 and the CloudFront edge location distribution. You can have them inside your VPC, inside your AWS account. For example, in your one of your architects on the security group rather than on application. And also vice versa, you can have them on your application and the instance itself or the surfaces. It's add additional layer. So it's a great way to have your security increase from different level, different layer, different network infrastructure. Now, web application firewall, which is WAF, is targeted the firewall protection. So it's customizable web security role that allowed you to customize your IP address, HTTP headers, and also it allowed you to manage the roles of that security threat. You can deploy it on the CloudFront, on any application load balance, on your EC2 application, and on IBI application interface. Exactly on any level or any layer of your services. So what is the manager? Allowed you to have center security management services, which is manage the role across your account and application. It will allow you to streamline application compliance. It will rapidly target its response to the threat. Now, the iteration testing, AWS allowed you to test your application against different type of the threat or attack, but you can use the CloudForma web security automated template. It will then automatically create infrastructure where deploy this along with the same manageable security role. Now, it's you need to have a permission from AWS before you run the test because we'll consider as attack, will block your account. It takes 2 business days to get that permission. It's an online application which logged in the only as a root users. You can do it with your IAM users. Only permission granted for a few services such as EC2, RDS, CloudFront, IBI, and Lambda and Lightsail. Any other services you want to use and test is not going to be permitted to use these services. So, and also is not granted for all EC2 instant type. We mentioned each EC2 instant have different type to use or to buy. Make sure that you test the right instant type. Now, Amazon Kinesis, this is dedicated specifically for advanced level knowledge. We know that is live process for large stream of data in real time. It can be generated continually by thousands of data resources. The application data process increasingly going to increase record by record and over by basically time after time, and will going to increase your size of your data. Now, it's not available on the free tier, and you will be built and the server-side encryption using AWS for KMS customer master key. So if you don't use the master key CMK, then you would not be able to use your Kinesis data stream even for analytic purpose in the future. Now, Kinesis data stream, there is a benefit of using that one. If you use live continue data, you have a channel video streaming video in a live basis every day, then you can use these services and you can manage them on any multiple availability zone. You can have a safety alarm if is the process have been interrupted or the data cannot be saved or not streamed properly. You can use it with different multiple application, and the data retention for from 1 day to 7 days with additional cost. Now you're going to have a producer and you're going to have consumer stream. All of them have their own role. The producer continually push data to stream. The consumer process the data in real time. The stream consists of a shard. Each shard is uniquely identified of data record. The data can have sequence of number of partition key to save it and up to 1 MB. You can stream that and create it using management console, or you can create stream operating. Now, this is the good or the best graph I can use to explain illustrate Kinsys. On the left side, you can have the applications or the client or mobile or your on-premises traditional services. You can stream data to the cloud or to the consumer. You can use Amazon in the middle Kinsys stream, which have different shard, different live stream, and then you can have your EC2 instance to capture this stream and deliver this application. At the end, then you can store and save this data in your storage and in your own chosen application for storage or analysis. Note that at the end, on the right of that graph, you have Amazon Kinsys at the bottom, Firehouse, which also allowed you not just store to analyze this data on a real time, besides saving them after to your storages. Now we can have the Firehouse, that one at the right side of the graph, to direct that stream to other AWS services such as S3. So then, as I said, you can configure this in the future to write the data back to S3. Now, writing to Kinsys stream, you can write up to 1,000 record per second. Each shard can provide capacity of 1 MB data input, which is quite large. Number of shards require specific when stream created. The partition key example of this format, which is specified by the producer to identify which shard in each stream to write which data for mapping purposes. Sequence number is unique, is assigned by Kinsys with the record created. The shard iterator is positioning the shard to start read the data record. Now, writing to your Kinsys stream, now if you have live data, then you can use put records. You can add the stream name, the partition key, and the data. Simple as that. And the process for the producer will collect the live data, and it will run the put record command, and then will need to have the name of this specific, let's say, services to supply that to the data which is going to be into the stream. This is an example how you can read the data stream. Each one of them can identify with the name and again with the partition key and the data. What development tools available on AWS? We have the SDK, we have the KCL, which is Kinsys Client Library. You can use Java or Python to develop your Kinsys live stream. You can also direct the data from DynamoDB or S3. You can produce library after that to simplify the data, what is recorded and which data to save and to where storage to stream. We have a new word, we can call it the Kinesis agent, is pre-built Java application to collect and send data to stream to the end users. And you can also generate data to test the stream. Now, you can see here on this architect, there is a multiple availability zone and physically isolated from each other. And that enable us to distribute our architect across multiple availability zone. By doing so, we are going to achieve high availability, and to also we can use more than one availability zone. When one goes down, the other one will continue to operate. And our infrastructure located on availability zone will then continue to operate as well. This architect or this design diagram can allow you to use your virtual private computer environment on multiple region and multiple availability zone. Uh, we can, and the reason I managed to put this one behind Kins is because we can distribute our application across these multiple availability zone. We can distribute to multiple availability zone, regardless it's Kinsys or S3. Now, let's see what next. Now, how we can achieve this high availability? As we know that AWS cloud is divided into multiple regions across the globe. Okay. Now, those availability zones are physically isolated, and then it enables us to distribute this across availability zone. If you do this way, by doing, we are going to achieve high availability. Okay. For example, if one of these goes down, the other one will continue, because it's going, if one availability goes down, the other one, it will continue, because it's going to use the available services such as auto scaling or the elastic load balance to check in advance which of these actually are not healthy and direct the traffic to the right one. Now, we can create virtual private within a region, and that virtual private cloud is our own private space within the cloud space. Previously, we have launched an EC2 instance. EC2 instance can be server, can be web server, can be application. We had used the WordPress application, and it was launched within the default VPC. VPC can contain subnet, and we need to have at least one subnet to launch the EC2. But we can have multiple subnet, and we can have those multiple availability zone, can be all of them in private or in public. Now, we can see how we connect to this VPC. We can use the internet gateway to connect to your subnet, and we can use VPN, which have two-door connectivity. On the right side, we can have the customer or consumer gateway. On our premises, we can have a virtual private gateway. I said our premises, I mean on the cloud. Okay. Now, if we are launching web server, for example, if we are launching WordPress application, if we wanted to that application to be accessible to the wider public on the internet, we need to have an internet gateway at our VPC that allowed that to happen, and then will be accessible and scalable. It's reduce, and it will be have high availability component. Now, the right side of this slide, we can see the second choice, connecting to VPC. If we're looking to secure connection, not just to your AWS account or to your cloud, you may want it to connect to your enterprise premises. So you can set up virtual private network, and then it will consist of virtual private gateway on the AWS side, and it will consist of consumer gateway on the customer side. That will create VPN, will lead to create VPN connection. It's a dual connection. It has a redundancy built in there, so the VBG, which is Virtual Private Gateway, and is the VPN connector on the Amazon side. And the VPN connection is the consumer gateway in the physical device or the software in your premises. So this direct connect that is physical fiber optic high speed connection from your enterprises to AWS is normally used by the large organization. It requires very large throughput throughout to AWS. It requires you to have internet connectivity. EC2 instance has a public IP address. You have to have an internet gateway. You have to have a route table defined each domain and each table from the subnet. Otherwise, you will not be able to create the VPC connectivity. So what is the security available? We can use security group for individual instance, and also that is going to be stateful. So the traffic come into the instant with the security group, then will retain traffic from that require and have to be allowed. If it's not, then that code would be stateless. Finally, we've got the flow logs. They will capture the information of the request going to in and out of your VPC, and then that will be forward through the CloudWatch logs, which will record it in, which will you can use it for alerting your you can use it for analysis or high bill integration. We covered this at the beginning, so what we're going to cover next week or next session, advanced VPC. What we just mentioned is the introduction and definition and availability options for VPC, but we're going to take it in a high level, how we use this and how we integrated subnet within VPC and how we make it available or private, or how we can access between these two different type of VPC. We're going to use a design and deployment with a CloudFormation. We're going to use IAM, which is Identity and Management Access Services, to have more control and security. We're going to talk about Node JavaScript to control and connect to Amazon EC2. And we're going to conclude with these 4 topics, which is our last topic on the Cloud Practitioner. We're going to talk about Amazon Elastic Block Storages, the difference between S3 and AFS and EBS. And we're going to introduce you to one of the new topics. It's called ECS, Elastic Container Services on Fargate. And we'll mention about RDS management database tool and use it as a database services or server. We're going to tackle a little bit advanced DynamoDB before we conclude this course. For today, I wish you all the best and keep safe and see you next session. Bye-bye for now.